Why exactly do we need ODL research in Africa? It's an area that borders very much, and what would be your contributions towards this?
Well, I think for two reasons. Okay. One is that there is a huge expansion in distance education in Africa. Okay. You know, in the last 20 years, in addition to Unisa, we've got universities in Nigeria, in Tanzania, in Zambia, open universities. Okay. The next ones which are coming up in Africa are first in Mauritius, Kenya, Ghana. So because of this huge expansion, it's very important to have a credibility of the system. And research actually helps us to do that. Because recently there was a case in Ethiopia in August last year, in 2010. The government banned all distance learning operations in the country. And there were 64 institutions offering distance education. So after a lot of, kind of flurry of negotiations, they changed their mind and reinstated distance education in October. So while on the one hand there's this huge expansion, on the other there is this, barriers which are being created. Mm-hmm. So it's very important that research will establish the credibility and the solidity of the system. So I think that's why it's important.
It's important because also Professor Maluleke may even see this way forward, especially being the executive director of research at Unisa. What are your views in this?
Look, I think what Prof has already said is important. Expansion is one thing, but I think it's important that we don't expand without the requisite depth of understanding of what ODL is, because there is a lot of myths around ODL as an easy, simple way of educating the most number of people, when in fact methodologically it is quite an involved process. So research is important to help us deal with that. But the other reason is that in Africa, ODL research, ODL learning offers the greatest promise for our imperatives as a continent, where education and skills levels are very low, and we can't afford to jump into ODL without actually understanding what we're doing, and the research aspect of it is very important.
If that is the case, though we know that research is at low ebb in most of the ODL institutions in Africa, which area can we say specifically are the pressing areas that we could think of research in ODL?
Well, I mean, there are many areas because research in distance education is very descriptive and anecdotal. It doesn't really have that rigor which we need. Okay. But I would still pick up three areas where it's very important for us to actually focus on research.
Okay.
One is on learners and learning. Okay. Who are our learners and how do they learn, especially with the use of new technologies? Okay. Does it make any difference, or is it just, an add-on? Okay. So that is one area. The second is on open education resources. This is a huge phenomenon which is coming up. How can we use open education resources to improve the quality of education? And the third area for research is, I think, in innovations, because that's where really the future lies. So I would, pick those three.
Perhaps with the learner support, I don't know what your view are, Professor Maluleke. The learner support issue is equally a fundamental area of research, I assume, in ODL. What are your views?
Yes, I agree
throughput totally. Rates as well.
I agree totally with Prof. It's important that we understand how people learn in the ODL mode, and not assume that they learn exactly the same way as they do in contact. And if we can understand that through research, through case studies, through subjects specific focus research areas, it will help us understand, especially in Africa, where you have to mix, if you like, technology, advanced forms of teaching with print-based, with you like, because we're not quite where we want to be in terms of the digital divide, but we're getting there. So you need to have a mixed kind of approach, and you need to understand where you are as a continent as far as the use of technology is concerned, how you can get further. So I agree. I think the whole area of learning becomes very, very important. I also think that another area which is implied in what Prof has said is for the various disciplines to understand how best they can teach what they are teaching, what the pitfalls are, what the enhancements might be, because, you know, there are humanities, but we also try to teach some of the natural sciences, for example, through ODL. I don't think we understand quite.
Okay, you are almost taking me to the question that agitates my mind, that the ODL practice, there is a new paradigm shift now in the ODM research, and people want to focus essentially on MIT, that is multi, inter, and transdisciplinary nature of research in ODL. How would you see to this, rather than focusing on your specialization area, and then you can really mix around all these three areas, the multi, the inter, and the transdisciplinary nature in research? Is it feasible?
Well, I think it is feasible, but the most important at the macro level question is that the research that we undertake must be relevant.
Okay.
Will it be of use to practitioners? Will it be useful to policymakers? That's the broader concern. Then one can decide, you know, whether it has to be MIT or whether it has to be something. But I think the main contribution which the ODL sector has given to education as a whole is systems research. You know, how people learn, how to deliver materials. And I think this is going to be the systems research, that focus is going to become increasingly important as there is a convergence of face-to-face and blended modes, face-to-face and distance. So I think let's not throw that baby out with the bathwater.
Okay. But really I'm concerned about what you just mentioned regarding OER. There is some kind of skepticism among some ODL institutions in Africa that we just have to give away all our materials, which then will be put on this. Do you see that to be normal? Is it necessary will be part of this holy communion kind of a thing? In other words, we should be part and parcel of releasing our materials to be on the website for OER, because you just mentioned it just now.
You know, the OER, people have a feeling that if we give away the material, then we have nothing left.
Okay.
But if I just take, you know, and this is all, what should I say, perceptual rather than based on any evidence.
Okay.
But if we look at the evaluation which the MIT people did, you know, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, they put all their courses on online, free. The evaluation they did of that whole project is that about 35% of the people who are now joining the university are people who are actually looking at the material first. So in a way, it's not only improving the global profile of the institution as a leader in education, but it's also a marketing device. You know, it's helping people, the students, to decide what courses they want to do. So I don't think it's going to in any case detract from the business models or the kind of advantages that institutions have. It's not going to be giving away and getting nothing in return.
I don't know whether you have any view whether...
Look, I mean, it's a whole debate about open access partly, but this time is concerning learning material. I think it's an important development. That's the direction we need to be getting on. You must remember that ODL, in my view, by its very nature, is interdisciplinary.
Okay.
Because no mode of teaching forces you to think about technology, for example, in the manner that ODL does. It doesn't matter whether you're a mathematician or you're a philosopher, you know, so you are forced to think across and beyond your discipline. So I think it's important that we don't pretend that ODL is not already interdisciplinary, but we need to be conscious about that, and that's where the research, I think, comes in.
Okay. Before I go to the final one, quickly, Professor Kanwar, I don't know, you may have noticed that research is at low ebb in most of the ODL institutions in Africa. What do you think is responsible for this, essentially, and what can we do to change the situation?
Well, I mean, in ODL institutions, faculty members are so engaged in course development.
Okay.
And in other things like, tutorial support and all, they don't have really the time. But institutions have a very major responsibility. For example, if the institution has a policy framework in place, okay. If, for example, they offer grants to faculty members, and encourage them to do research, if they run publications, if, the institution can actually create the environment whereby research can be encouraged and promoted. The second is partnerships and collaboration. Technology now allows us to really reach out across institutional and national boundaries to other people, who have similar interests. So I think that is another thing, to encourage those kinds of collaborations for research.
What can we then do simply that in what areas or what ways can call Commonwealth of Learning, through your position there as the Vice President, help Unisa?
One of them is that we have a very good program which we developed in collaboration with Cambridge. It's called Practitioner Research and Evaluation Skills Training. It's a very good training program. It's the only one of its kind globally, and it's free. Please use it. Give it to your faculty. The second is we also have a professional development program, okay, in which your staff members can be encouraged to apply for little attachments in different institutions or little training programs. So we can support with that. And finally, I mean, your chair program, it's through that chair program also we can support research.
Okay. Professor Maluleke, because we have time, very terrible time now, don't you think that we should collaborate with Commonwealth, especially in professional development?
No, I think it's crucial. Collaboration is the key, because ODL is fairly new. It's a young development on the African continent. Even with an older institution like Unisa, we have only recently become more conscious of our ODL identity, having come from a correspondence college type of setup. And the other institutions are very young. So it's important that we collaborate. That's the only way we can move forward. Okay. It's important that we increase capacity of people with the ability to do research in ODL, because we still have a lack of skilled people in that area. So it will take time, but I think we are on the road.
I think from now, actually, we must engage more. Luckily, Professor Asha Kanwar will be delivering a keynote speech to us, and that I think we should take it from there, how we can really utilize Commonwealth of Learning assistance in developing or enhancing what we do at Unisa. It's been a wonderful thing that we are talking to you this afternoon. God bless you.
Thank you.